So welcome to the second of our webinars on reporting in Microsoft Dynamics. Those of you who attended last week will have seen where we looked at the Microsoft products available and what we could do with some of those. And today we're going to be looking at third-party products. PwC put out a report where they looked at, specifically for Dynamics AX. I know we do have people on here from using other Dynamics products, but where the report came back that 75% had reporting issues or not enough reporting focus early on in the project. This has been a major issue for companies implementing Dynamics, not just in AX, but across the board. Microsoft itself has merrily been out there marketing on the basis of 4 key elements. And the fourth of those here on the right-hand side is that Dynamics has powerful embedded analytics and BI, a very strong sales point for going down the Dynamics route. Some of you may well have used that as one of your justifications. The way that Microsoft is going is very much around using role centers. And here we see a role center, and with the integration to other products. So here you'll see Link on the right-hand side, picking up the availability of people in the organization, picking up on data and different ways of presenting such data. The way that it sees Dynamics going in the future, again, still very much about presenting graphically images of what's going on in the business, numbers, and this is a Windows 8 format. And they're also looking to put things out so that they're available via touch screen, via phones and other media. So that's the way that Microsoft are thinking of going. What they've summarized is that SQL Server is now the basis for analytics and reporting for Dynamics going forward. So in order to get the reporting and BI requirements, it's very much about SQL Server, and they are constantly releasing new tools. Only within the last year we've seen Power View come forward as quite a powerful tool that they have put forward. We covered that last week. So AX was probably the first of the products to go down this route. 2012 now is only really the Microsoft tool set is all they have. They've removed the tools themselves. They have left the management reporter, which is common across all the ERP products. But the rest of the tools have disappeared out of AX, the X++ reporting that was there before. And whilst the other products all, to a point, have their own product set, whether it be XBR for NAV, whether it be Fetch XML for CRM, but the view is that these will decline as new releases come out, and there'll be more and more reliance on the SQL Server toolset. And in fact, depending on what you want out of your BI and reporting, and different companies will have different requirements, whether it's queries and ad hoc analysis, a lot of which can come straight out of your ERP and CRM and displayed information by using queries and sorting on the screen right the way through to KPIs, scoreboards, dashboards, or even fixed management reports. Microsoft has created a whole suite of tools to cover that. Well, in some ways that's good because we have integrated Microsoft products. On the other hand, it's a question of, well, which products do I use for which? How many products do I have to use? And as I've already mentioned, there are the other tools there. All the ERP suite have the management reporter. There are those other tools, and that's good. And if you've got one of those and it's working, however, over time those will disappear. But what if you have 2 databases? What if you've got a CRM database and an ERP database, or you've got one of those 2 and you've got history? How do you therefore get that reporting to all work together, even if you are still using those old tools? Well, basically you're down to the tool set from Microsoft, going into the databases, maybe even creating a data warehouse or utilizing third-party products. Now, if we start to look at how complex some of those things can get, from a Microsoft perspective, lots of tools. We covered off the pros and cons. I'm not saying they're all bad. If you've got one specific requirement, some of those Microsoft tools are very, very good. SSRS, the SQL Server Reporting Services, is probably the only one-for-all tool. However, that is very technical. got some great tools within it. But for a lot of our medium-sized organisations who don't want to have a large technical team of experts, and to some extent there have been companies who've said to me, you know, this is going back to the 80s where we had the large mainframes and we had a large IT department, and when I wanted a new report done, I'd put it into the stack, and hopefully 6 months later it would have got to the top of the queue. You know, what is required now is for people, perhaps not every single person within an organisation, but certain key resources within a department or an area, to be able to provide the reporting for those people in their area. One of the responses to that quite often is, well, there's Excel. All of those products we talked about within the Dynamics suite have a very good export to Excel. And yet, again, one of the key sales points about going down the route of having a centralized ERP is the fact that we have this one version of the truth. The minute data comes out and into Excel, we have the ability to manipulate it, and we're not necessarily on one version of the truth. We could be providing many different versions. And where's it stored? How's it kept? So lots of things come up with that as a problem. So third-party tools. Which third-party tools should we be looking at? We've picked out a range here which are probably the most commonly used in the Microsoft Dynamics customer base. And they start off probably with the third one down. One of the simplest is a tool called Atlas. Fairly cheap, fairly simple. Doesn't cover all the boxes here. What you'll see on the start on the left-hand side is the products that we've put down there, and we put the products, the third-party products, and we put then the Dynamics products against them. If it's a green, it means it's covered extensively. If it's an amber, then it's covered to a point, but probably not specifically designed for that particular product, and red is not covered. Doesn't mean to say they couldn't be manipulated to achieve that requirement in those products, but generally not required. So a product like ClickView, for example, is very good in some aspects, not being specifically designed for any of those products. If you look at some of the other products we have down on that list, they have been specifically designed for the Dynamics suite. There's also two types of tools we have here. We have those that work on the data platform to create the environment on which we can then report, and then there are those tools that report themselves. So there's those two aspects, and we've looked at those two here using the same color coding. So BI for Dynamics, quite a good tool specifically designed for Dynamics at sorting out the data, setting it up, but you really need to have another way of presenting it. If we look at something like Atlas, again, very quick, very simple, as I've already mentioned. And then Precision Point is another one that's been around for a long time, specifically working around the business and financial reporting, and has come up strong. Where it was starting to lose its credibility was its ability to cover all the information across the databases in the products. So it's now come together with a product called Target. Target Analytics, in fact, is what they use, and Excel Publisher. Now, between that, they have created a good tool suite to be able to deliver those requirements, as has Jet and Time Extender. And I know we have a couple of people on the call who are NAV users who are utilising Jet at the moment. That's an Excel add-in, so very much about utilising the power of Excel, like Atlas again. Very good, solid tools for doing that. But when you start looking at Jet and Time Extender, or Precision Point plus Target plus Excel Publisher, you're then starting to have to create a suite of products to do something. So yes, they do cover, of those people who've already got them, yeah, they probably work very well for you. But you're still working with multiple companies, all trying to integrate their products. As we move down, you'll see Jet and Time Extender have come together. Time Extender very much about manipulating the database, Jet about presenting that within the Excel environment. And that leaves then the bottom one, Zap Technology. So you could say, well, what's the difference between perhaps Zap Technology, Jet and Time Extender, and the Precision Point, which cover most of those areas that do everything for us? If we just say, well, they've got the most green boxes, and that's what we want, the ability to do everything from alerts and scorecards right the way through to financial BI or self-service analysis. What differentiates those then? Well, There's a couple of things here. One I've already mentioned, the number of organisations that you have to deal with, the number of authors that there are out there is one of the things. The other one is that we would recommend and probably suggest the best product that we come across, and my colleague Neil, who's going to do a demonstration in a minute, has worked with most of these tools we've got up there, so he's got first-hand experience of using these tools, setting them up, getting information out. So therefore has come up and helped us to develop this this way forward, which is suggesting that probably Zap technology is the best product. And part of the reason is because it has a lot of built-in analytics already specifically designed for the Dynamics suite. So we think it's the best product of those three. It doesn't mean to say that people who've got the other two that cover most things should change, but we would suggest that for those people who are looking now, Zap technology is the best product. How does that work? How does Zap work then? Why is that so good? Well, it starts off by taking that source database, and that could be multiple databases from with different data sources, so it could be historical, could be different ERP products, and putting them into a staging database and building one cube. So the Dynamics products that already have cubes built into them, part of the problem is that ability to pick up on the different cubes, and when you start getting cross-cube reporting. The other thing that that Zap that makes it slightly different from something like Time Extender is that it will read the table and field descriptions, not just the SQL names. So we're looking, for example, in AX at the AOT, at the object tree itself, and picking up those names. Now that means that when people are starting to build their reports, they're seeing names that they are familiar with rather than the database names. So we have the SQL Server, business applications, Dynamics, and SQL at the bottom. We then have, within the Zap technology piece, we have what they call Cube Express. This is another powerful piece of, another powerful tool. This allows you to pick up, it picks up new fields that have been developed or come in from third-party add-ons, and it places those also to within the cube. We don't have to do a lot of work to find out what they are within SQL, where they are, and bring them in. It's picking those up automatically. You have a choice as to whether to bring them in or not. So that makes life a lot simpler. A lot of the customers out there of Dynamics, one of the things that Microsoft is very keen to sell on is the word agility. That's flexibility with speed. And therefore a lot of companies have customized their Dynamics installs. Now that customization then causes problems when it comes to reporting. Cube Express gets rid of that. On top of that, you've then got the way that we can present the data, either through analysis, scorecards, dashboards, alerts, fixed reports. And we'll see some of those in a minute from Neil. And then lastly, on top of those, the fact that it's integrated. So the role centers that are coming out in all the latest versions of all the ERP and CRM products can pick up on the Zap product. It links automatically with SharePoint. You can create your a web page to go in directly to allow customers or suppliers into, or again we can publish those into our role centers. And lastly, and again, one of the key things that makes this, we think, that much easier to implement and sort out the data and then get data to the users is a large number of preset BI templates. And these have actually been drawn together based on certain business industries. So if you're working in the retail industry, there's a set of predefined analytics, again, making things a lot easier to work with because they've already been designed for you. Okay, at this point, I'm going to hand over to Neil Wright, and Neil will take us through a demonstration of the Zap product and show some of those points that I've been talking about. Neil.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just setting up my screen here. There we go. All right, so I'm going to be doing a presentation of the Zap BI solution or user interface as part of our presentation of how third-party products can be used on dynamic solutions. In this particular case, I'm using Dynamics AX data again, following on from our presentation last week. And the scenario I have here is that I'm the CEO of a company called Contoso. And what we're looking at is our dashboard here, where we've defined a number of key performance indicators that we use to evaluate the state of the business, and we display these KPIs in this dashboard, which could be visible in one of the Dynamics role centers, in SharePoint, a SharePoint intranet, or in the Zap BI portal, which is where I'm working from at the moment. Now, not only is this dashboard visible to everybody in the organization, but we as the management team use it all the time to focus on our goals and objectives. I think I just mentioned this, that we're in the Zap BI portal at this particular point in time, and just bear in mind that we're using data from 2009. So the first thing I do as a CEO every day is review the KPIs and the business scorecard of our dashboard. And the KPIs are grouped into financial, business processes, and customer perspectives to recognize that to be successful in an organization, we can't just focus just on the financial situation, but we also need to look at customer retention and competitiveness. Now, to provide a deeper understanding of the business from the central point, the scorecard also indicates trends, and the dashboard contains other data, such as this chart showing the monthly sales and gross margin movement over the last year. So as a CEO, I'm quickly and easily able to compare my company's achievements with our agreed targets and decide what action to take, be it discussion in our monthly meetings or just tactical actions we can actually take right now. So looking at the KPIs in my scorecard today, I can see a number of cautionary amber and red indicators over here in the scorecard, and looking at the overall business score of almost 80%, I know that the lower and upper boundaries of the green indicator have been set between 85 and 100%, and with the actual score at about 80%, we're not up to standard at this particular point in time. Now, when I break this down and look at each perspective in the business score, I can see that the financial perspective is great, primarily driven by gross margin against target. But I need to look at the other perspectives as well because of the red and amber indicators that I'm seeing here. And most concerning for me at the moment is my customer perspective, which stands at 30% against target this month. And one of the KPIs here is lost sales to sales percentage, which indicates our lost sales, which has spiked enormously from our previous month. So I want to investigate that because it may indicate customer dissatisfaction. And my two indicators over on the right-hand side here, customer OTIF and customer churn, may indicate this. In terms of our sales orders being delivered on time and in full, and I'll hover over that to see the pop-up, we can see that we're down at 85% compared to a target of 95% and a previous value of 90%. And if I look at my customer churn, we're at a percentage of 1.5 with a target of 1%. So we're certainly not achieving target at this point in time. So of course I'm going to delegate this work to my sales director to resolve what these issues are around this particular thing. Before I do that, I'd like to drill down and understand this data a little more, and I can do that again in my scorecard by clicking on this particular icon next to the value of 7.91%, and this opens up a report that we've been using to evaluate or monitor our lost sales. And I can see that last year, in October 2008, it was pretty poor, but we've actually got it under control over time. But suddenly, in this last month, it's now popped back up to this particular value of 7.91%. Now, if I want to look at my data a little further in detail, I can go down to my left corner here to June 2009, right-click on my £52,000, and I can then select from a range of different reports that might give me additional information. One of those is the ability to go right down to the transactions themselves, and I'm letting that open up. Very basic set of information which will display all the transactions, and I can now go in and export that data to Excel and so on. However, in this particular case, I'm handing this responsibility over to my sales director. So I've gone back to my report about the last sales trend, and I can now click on my email, and this will give me the opportunity to select the person to whom I'm addressing this problem and a message to indicate what the issue is, and I can then delegate it in that fashion. Right. For now, though, I'll just cancel this particular thing. So I've shown you briefly how we can monitor the business from day to day using the dashboard. Yep. Okay, but we also hold monthly review meetings to see how we performed during the previous month. We have a suite of management reports for these meetings, and we use Zap's report pack functionality to produce a single PDF document containing all of these reports. I've got the monthly flash report open here to show you the kinds of reports that we dragged into this environment. And because we want to get this information out as quickly as possible and without any human error involved, we've created a scheduled, or we've used Zap's scheduled event functionality to generate this monthly flash report as a PDF on the first day of each new month, where the scheduled event emails the information out to the management team. So the report pack can take a few seconds to a few minutes to run, depending on the complexity of the reports and the amount of data that's involved. So instead of running it now, I've just gone and prepared it in advance. And we can see that this particular report contains, obviously, headings and so on. I can scroll down here, and we can see reports that we've actually seen before. So a screenshot, effectively, of our dashboard, as well as other reports. Okay, I should also point out, even though I don't have them here, that we can include managers' business commentaries in the report packs. So managers can update their information about the results for the month, and they can be included in this pack to go out. Now, just as a matter of interest, I mentioned these scheduled events that would send these reports out on a scheduled basis, but there's also conditional events where exceptions such as possibly sales below target or month-to-date gross margin below target can be highlighted to somebody through an email with this alert functionality. Okay, so I've hopefully given a very brief picture of how we can exercise business management using our dashboards and our report packs and the automation within Zap BI. So at this point, I become a product manager within the organization, and my task now is to analyze overstocked and understocked products that have been sold this particular month, and I need to build a report to do this. Right, so I'm going to get into the design environment here, and I'll select New up top to begin the reporting process, click Analysis Report. This is going to open up a blank canvas for me effectively. I select my source data, being the Dynamics AX data on this particular occasion. Okay, and that gives me the opportunity to begin this whole report. So what I'm going to do now is draw in information from a wide variety or a wide range of the areas within the organization. I need sales data, outstanding purchase order information, stock on hand quantities, as well as the lead time data from our suppliers in order to establish whether or not I'm in an overstocked or understocked situation. I'm able to do this because I'm using Zap's single hypercube, which contains the data from all areas of the business. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I want to report on this particular month, I'm going to use one of Zap's functions, special functions, which enable me to report on the current month. So I'm dragging down through my measures and attributes here to my date dimension, and from here I'm going to work within my calendar date environment rather than fiscal, and I'm going to select on current month. I'm going to drop that into my slices area. So that's going to present me with the data for June 2009 in this particular case. Now I want, as my rows, my item numbers, or my items themselves. So I'm going to drag down through my dimensions. They're in alphabetical order until I get to my items. I'm going to drag in my items level here, drop that in, and that's going to display for me all of my items right now. The next thing I want to do is bring in my columns that I've referred to from across the organization. So firstly, I'm looking for average daily sales quantity. So I need to go up to my measures area, to my sales invoice measure group, and I'll go and select the particular measure from here, which is average daily invoice sales quantity. Now to see my stock situation for each product, I need two measures from my inventory measure group. Firstly, my stock on hand. So up to my inventory measure group is my stock on hand quantity. Drop that in here. I'm also requiring my average stock days. How much stock do I have available based on my average sales? Now to see if I've got any outstanding purchase orders that could impact on my stock on hand situation, I need to go down to my purchase orders. And I need to bring in my purchases quantity outstanding. Okay, and then because I'm going to use my lead time information provided by my supplier to evaluate my over stock situation, I need to go to my items measure group. And from there, I'm going to select my maximum purchases lead time. Good. There's not much information here at this particular point in time, but I want to do a calculation here. So I'm going to do a calculation on the fly, which enables me to evaluate my overall stock situation. So I hover over my placeholder here, click on the icons that appear. I'm going to call this calculation over or under stocked. Days, over under stock days. And the formula I'm going to use is my average stock days. I can use my fields that are already in the report. And a minus sign. And my maximum purchases lead time. And I'll apply that. Now I could filter out all of these zero values that exist here, but instead of doing that, just in the interest of time, I'm just going to sort on my average daily invoice sales quantity. And I can now see, for example, here, for this particular product, that I have an average stock days value of around 10. I have a maximum purchases lead time of 14 days. That's how long it's going to take me to get my stock in, which means that I'm in a bit of trouble here for this particular product, and that I need to get stock in well before that lead time that is supplied to me by the supplier. So I very quickly and easily created a very informative report that can be used immediately, partly because the data is from a validated cube. I'm not creating a report completely from scratch again, where we need to validate data initially. Okay. As I mentioned before, one of the prime benefits of this single cube is the fact that I was able to bring in all of this disparate sort of data in here in order to provide me with the information that I need to manage my over or understock situation. I'm going to save this quickly, and I'll call this my stock status report. One of the benefits of this is, unlike things like Excel spreadsheets, we're able to save this to a very safe environment, central environment, where this repository of reports can be managed. So I'm going to go down to my company, and I'm going to place this report in here. So I'll just call this a stock status stock 2 report. I'll say OK to that. And now, as the product manager, I also want to identify the individual products that account for 80% of our trade for this particular month. I want to see what my top performers are within our organization. And I'm going to do this using one of my visual tools, in this particular case a pie chart, which very nicely displays proportions. So I'm going to go again to my new environment here, and I'm going to select a chart to create. And select the particular data source that I'm working with. Now, because I'm focusing on AX data for just the current month, I'm going to go to my date dimension, and I'll select current month here. My chart is going to be based on the daily sales amount, or rather my sales amount for the month. So I'm going to go up to my sales invoice lines, and I'm going to select from, my apologies, got to go a little further down. I'm going to select my sales amount from that. Okay. Now I'm going to go and select my items, and I'm going to use functionality that exists in Zap again to achieve this. So down in items, I'm going to right click on items and drag them in. That will immediately open up the menu that I require to select effectively what is a Pareto analysis in this particular case, my top the products that provide me the top 80% of my sales. Go up to my top and bottom functions and select my Pareto analysis. This is going to open up a dialog box for me again, and I'm just going to change this slightly. So I want all my bottom 20 products to all be grouped into this grouping called bottom 20%. I'm going to use my sales value as the formula to order this data by, and I'm going to apply this. And as I said, I'm going to be using a pie chart, so I can go up to my chart types and select on a pie chart, and we immediately have some information here to indicate what the values are. I can go up to my design environment, click on show labels, and I can now see those values, hover over them, and that will give me more information about my top 80% of my products. Now, this is all great by itself, and we can use this for analysis, but it becomes particularly valuable, as you've seen a little earlier, in a dashboard environment. So I'm going to save this very quickly and build a dashboard. So again, I'll just go down to my company repository of reports and save it into this particular field here. Okay, so I'll just call this Pareto analysis and say OK to that. And in a similar fashion to the way in which I've created my two reports, I'll now go to a dashboard, which gives me an open canvas from which I can now create my dashboard. So select Pareto analysis, which I've just created, and once that's displayed, I can now select my stock status report. And now this is displaying information for this particular month. I'm going to go into my design environment, and I'm going to put in a slicer so that we can now go in and filter on our information. So within my dimension tree, I'd like to see this by our customer groups. So in my customer dimension, again in alphabetical order, so I can find this here. I'm going to drag customer groups into my slicer area, and with a slightly older version of Zap, I've got to take one more step to make it a drop-down list. Select selection types, and this will make my customer groups available to me. This will this particular slicer will impact on both of these components here that I've got in my dashboard. I want to also be able to click on one of these things, these segments here, and have it impact on this particular report on the right-hand side. So the way in which I can do that is click on my knife there and click on the report that I should be able to filter on, and I'm now in business in terms of the way in which I want to slice and dice my report. I'll just get rid of that for a moment. And I'll show you quickly how we can use this. So I've now got my information here without it being filtered at this point in time, except on the current month. I can now select from my customer groups. So for example, if I select retail customers, that will change my display and show me those particular products that are making up, in this particular case, 3 products that make up my 80% for retail customers. I can now select on major customers. And what's more, once I've selected this information, we can see this data appearing just for the major customers. I can then, for example, go in and see the impact of our biggest selling product by clicking on that, just see what the state of the stock is in terms of this particular report. So this just focuses in on the information for this particular item, and I can then clear that as and when I require. Good. So that is pretty much what I wanted to show you in terms of how we can use this particular tool, and as I say, for that matter, other tools are pretty similar. One of the major benefits of Zap over other products and solutions, though, is that product called Cube Express, which enables us to get our data into an environment, into a state that we are able to use these tools so well on that set of data for reporting. Good. With that, I'm going to hand you back to Philip to close off the presentation.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate that. So, just to finish off then, a lot of the products that we have talked about so far earlier on all take a lot less time to work through than the Microsoft Stack and SSRS, and probably most of them are going to be less technical. A recent client of ours went through this kind of realization here, taking 6 months with 4 SQL staff to try and get their reporting completed. When they realized they were not going to be ready for, in terms of their UAT for go live, they came along to Zap. Within 1 month, the Zap had done 80% of the reports that they required using one consultant. It only takes a matter of days to set up, and this is the same for most of those third-party products. You know, if you're going down the very simple end of using a product like Atlas, which is also very good for managing data imports and everything, and all you want is some fairly simple reporting, it is a very simple product to set up. Something like Zap can be up and running within 5 days and a few days of training, and people can start to be making their own reports. So all of these things make these products probably simpler to use. And I suppose one of the questions that you'll have to ask yourself is, do you want to sit with the Microsoft stack? I've come across companies who say, well, no matter what, we don't want third-party products, we just want to sit with the Microsoft stack. Well, that's fine. The Microsoft tools are very good, but you have to understand that they are getting quite complex. For those of you who want to understand a little bit more about those who didn't attend last week, we will be putting both this webinar and last week's up available for you to review. Okay, are there any questions? If anybody has any questions, we've still got a couple of minutes left before the end of the webinar. If you'd like to type out a question, we'll see if we can answer it for you. If not, then more than happy to take any. We're going to repeat these webinars over the next few months. And we're happy to take ideas for what people might want to see. If they want to see a specific aspect of the Microsoft stack working, or they want to see a specific aspect of something like Zap and see perhaps in a little bit more detail how that works, we'd be happy to discuss how that can be done. Can't see any questions coming through. So based on that, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance, and we will be sending out details of how you can access the video that we have made of this webinar. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much for attending today.